The morning sun painted the Afghan mountains in shades of gold and blood as Lieutenant Commander Jake Reaper Morrison adjusted his tactical scope for the third time in 5 minutes. Something felt wrong about this mission from the start, but he couldn't put his finger on what. The intelligence reports had seemed solid enough back at the forward operating base. A high-value target was supposedly hiding in the village of Kalana, tucked deep in the treacherous valleys of Baji's province. The target was Ahmad Shah Massoud, a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces across 3 provinces. Morrison's team, SEAL Team 7's Alpha Squad, had been tasked with what appeared to be a straightforward capture mission. 8 of America's most elite warriors, trained for exactly this type of operation, moving through terrain they had studied for weeks. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Insert via helicopter under cover of darkness, move through the valley, establish overwatch positions, and capture or eliminate the target at dawn when he typically made his morning rounds through the village. The team consisted of Morrison as team leader, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Tank Rodriguez as the heavy weapon specialist, Petty Officer First Class David Ghost Chun handling communications and electronic warfare, Petty Officer First Class Timothy Doc Williams serving as the team medic, Petty Officer Second Class Anthony Blade Jackson as the demolitions expert, Petty Officer Second Class Robert Hawk Thompson as the primary sniper, Petty Officer Third Class Michael Rookie Davis as the youngest member handling reconnaissance, and Petty Officer Third Class James Silent Murphy as the team's stealth infiltration specialist. Each man carried approximately 60 pounds of equipment, including ammunition, medical supplies, communication gear, and specialized weapon systems. Morrison carried the team's primary assault rifle along with advanced targeting equipment. Tank shouldered a modified M249 SAW machine gun capable of laying down suppressive fire against multiple targets. Ghost monitored multiple radio frequencies while carrying electronic countermeasure equipment designed to jam enemy communications. Doc carried extensive medical supplies that could handle everything from minor wounds to life-threatening injuries in the field. The insertion had gone smoothly enough. The MH-60 Black Hawk had dropped them at a landing zone approximately 8 kilometers from the target village under a moonless sky. The helicopter had disappeared into the darkness within 30 seconds, leaving the 8 SEALs alone in hostile territory with nothing but their training, equipment, and each other for support. They had moved through the rocky terrain with practiced efficiency, using night vision equipment to navigate the treacherous mountain paths while maintaining complete radio silence. Morrison remembered the briefing from Colonel Patricia Hayes, the intelligence officer who had presented the mission parameters. She was a sharp woman in her early 40s, with penetrating blue eyes and a reputation for thorough preparation. Her intelligence assessments were usually accurate, which made Morrison trust the mission profile despite his growing unease. The target maintains a regular schedule, Colonel Hayes had explained, pointing to satellite photographs of the village. He emerges from this compound every morning between 0600 and 0630 hours to inspect the perimeter defenses. Local intelligence suggests he travels with minimal security during these inspections, making it an ideal window for interdiction. The satellite imagery had shown a small village of approximately 40 buildings, mostly traditional Afghan construction with mud brick walls and flat roofs. The target compound was located in the center of the village, surrounded by a low wall with 2 visible entry points. The surrounding terrain consisted of rocky hills and narrow valleys, providing excellent concealment for an approaching team, but also creating potential ambush points. What the intelligence briefing had not mentioned, and what Morrison was beginning to suspect, was that Ahmad Shah Massoud might have anticipated exactly this type of operation. The Taliban commander had survived 3 previous attempts to capture or eliminate him, each time seeming to vanish just before coalition forces arrived. Some intelligence analysts suspected he had sources within the local population who provided advance warning of incoming operations. As the SEAL team moved through the pre-dawn darkness, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something more dangerous than a simple capture mission. The terrain they were crossing showed signs of recent activity. Boot prints in the soft earth, disturbed rocks along the trail, and subtle indicators that suggested more people had moved through this area than would be typical for a remote mountain village. Ghost, monitoring enemy communication frequencies, had reported unusual radio chatter during their approach march. Short, coded transmissions in Pashto that suggested coordinated movement of personnel. The transmissions were too brief and too well encrypted for the team's equipment to decode in real time, but their frequency and timing suggested a level of organization that exceeded what they had expected to encounter. Tank, Walking Point as the team's heavy weapons specialist, had identified what appeared to be recently constructed fighting positions along the ridgelines surrounding their target area. The positions were expertly camouflaged and would be nearly invisible to aerial reconnaissance, but Tank's ground-level perspective revealed subtle signs of excavation and construction that indicated significant preparation for defensive operations. Doc, whose medical training included extensive instruction in battlefield assessment, had noticed an unusual absence of civilian activity in the surrounding area. Afghan villages typically showed signs of early morning activity well before dawn as residents prepared for daily prayers and began their daily routines. The complete silence and absence of cooking fires or other indicators of normal civilian life suggested that either the village had been evacuated or its residents had been instructed to remain hidden. Blade, responsible for identifying and neutralizing explosive threats, had detected what appeared to be recently disturbed earth in several locations along their approach route. While he hadn't identified any specific improvised explosive devices, the pattern of disturbance suggested that defensive preparations had been made to channel any approaching force into predetermined kill zones. Hawk, the team's primary sniper, had been using his advanced optics to scan the target area throughout their approach. His observations were perhaps the most troubling of all. The village showed clear signs of defensive preparation, with fighting positions, camouflaged weapons emplacements, and what appeared to be prepositioned ammunition supplies. More concerning still, thermal imaging suggested the presence of significantly more personnel than intelligence estimates had indicated. Rookie, despite his relative inexperience, had proven himself exceptionally capable at reconnaissance and terrain analysis. His assessment of their current position indicated that they were moving through what could easily become a confined engagement area if they encountered resistance. The valley they were approaching had limited exit routes and would provide an enemy force with significant advantages in terms of elevation and fields of fire. Silent, true to his call sign, had moved through the terrain like a ghost, identifying and marking potential threats while maintaining complete noise discipline. His observations indicated that their target area had been prepared for exactly the type of operation they were conducting. Escape routes had been blocked or mined. Observation positions had been established at key points, and the entire operational area showed signs of having been turned into an elaborate trap. Morrison made the decision to halt the team's advance approximately 1 kilometer from the target village. Something was definitely wrong with this mission, and his experience told him that proceeding according to the original plan would likely result in casualties. He gathered his team in a small depression between two rocky outcroppings that provided concealment from observation and began reassessing their options. "Talk to me, Ghost," Morrison whispered into his communication headset. "What are you hearing on the radio frequencies?" Ghost checked his equipment and shook his head grimly. "Traffic is increasing, Reaper. Multiple stations coordinating movement and positioning. This isn't the light security we were briefed to expect." Tank shifted his machine gun to a more comfortable position and studied the terrain ahead through his scope. "I count at least 12 fighting positions that weren't in our intelligence photos. Someone's been very busy preparing for visitors." Doc was monitoring the team's medical status and equipment inventory. All 8 team members remained in excellent condition, with no injuries or equipment failures. However, their current situation was beginning to exceed the parameters for which they had prepared. If they encountered significant resistance, their medical supplies and evacuation options would become critical factors. Blade had been calculating explosive threats and defensive options. "If we proceed to the target, we'll be channeled into a valley with limited egress routes. Classique embûche terrain. Whoever set this up knows exactly what they're doing." Hawk adjusted his sniper rifle and studied the distant village through his advanced optics. Target area shows signs of recent fortification. Sandbags, camouflage positions, interlocking fields of fire. This isn't a sleepy village with light security. Rookie was reviewing their route options using GPS navigation and topographical analysis. Alternative extraction routes are limited, sir. If we need to egress quickly, we'll be using the same valley we came in through. Silent had been observing the surrounding terrain for signs of enemy movement. His hand signals indicated that he had identified what appeared to be observation posts on the ridgelines surrounding their position. They were not alone in these mountains, and their presence might already have been detected. Morrison weighed their options carefully. They could proceed with the original mission despite the increased risk, attempt to withdraw, and report the changed tactical situation, or modify their approach to account for the unexpected defensive preparations. Each option carried significant risks and potential consequences. The decision was made for them when Ghost detected a sudden increase in radio traffic coordinating what appeared to be a large-scale movement of personnel toward their position. Whatever element of surprise they might have possessed had been compromised. The mission had just transformed from a capture operation into a survival situation. Morrison keyed his radio to contact their command center. Base, this is Reaper 7. Mission parameters have changed significantly. Request immediate extraction coordination. The response that came back through their encrypted communication system was not what they expected to hear. Reaper 7, be advised that extraction assets are currently unavailable due to weather conditions. You are cleared to proceed with mission objectives or establish defensive positions as tactically appropriate. Weather conditions had been cleared during their insertion, and Morrison could see stars through breaks in the cloud cover. Something else was preventing extraction support, and they were now officially on their own in increasingly hostile territory with an unknown number of enemy forces converging on their position. The situation had just transformed from challenging to potentially catastrophic, and Morrison realized that the next few hours would test everything they had learned about survival, teamwork, and combat effectiveness. 8 elite warriors were about to face odds that would challenge even their exceptional training and experience. As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern horizon, Morrison made the decision that would define everything that followed. Rather than withdrawing or proceeding with the original mission, he ordered his team to establish defensive positions and prepare for what appeared to be an inevitable confrontation with a numerically superior enemy force in terrain that favored the defenders. What none of them knew was that help was already on the way, in a form none of them would have expected, from a guardian angel who was even now calculating distances and preparing to change the course of their seemingly impossible situation. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had been watching the SEAL team's approach through her high-powered scope for the better part of 2 hours. Positioned on a rocky outcropping nearly 1,500 meters from the target village, she had an elevated view of the entire operational area that the 8-man team below couldn't possibly achieve from their ground-level position. What she saw developing around them made her blood run cold with the certainty that these elite warriors were walking directly into an expertly prepared killing field. Maria was part of a different mission entirely. Her Army Special Forces unit had been tracking weapon supply routes through this region for 3 weeks, gathering intelligence on Taliban logistics networks that were supplying insurgent operations across multiple provinces. Her role as the unit's designated marksman was to provide overwatch and precision fire support for her 12-man team while they conducted reconnaissance and surveillance operations from concealed positions throughout the mountain valleys. Her team leader, Captain Robert Iron McKenzie, had positioned their unit approximately 2 kilometers from the village to observe what they believed were weapon caches hidden in the surrounding caves. They had no knowledge of the SEAL operation taking place simultaneously in the same area. Military operations in Afghanistan were compartmentalized for security reasons, which meant that units operating in the same general vicinity might have no awareness of each other's presence or mission objectives. Through her scope, Maria could see the SEAL team moving with professional efficiency through terrain that appeared safe, but was actually surrounded by an elaborate network of enemy positions. Her elevated position revealed the true scope of what awaited them. Taliban fighters had been moving into position throughout the night, creating a complex ambush that would envelop the SEAL team from three sides, while channeling their movement into predetermined killing zones. Maria's military background had prepared her exceptionally well for this type of observation and analysis. Born in El Paso, Texas, she had enlisted in the Army immediately after graduating high school with a determination to serve her country and prove herself in a male-dominated profession. Her natural aptitude for marksmanship had been evident from her first day at basic training, where she had consistently outshot male recruits who had been hunting and shooting since childhood. After completing basic training and advanced individual training as an infantryman, Maria had volunteered for Special Forces selection. The grueling selection process had eliminated more than 70% of the candidates, but Maria's combination of physical endurance, mental toughness, and tactical intelligence had earned her a place in one of the Army's most elite units. She had subsequently completed specialized training in advanced marksmanship, reconnaissance, and special operations tactics. Her current weapon was a modified state Route 25 semi-automatic sniper rifle equipped with advanced optics and specialized ammunition designed for long-range precision engagement. She carried 40 rounds of match-grade ammunition, each round capable of accurate engagement at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters. Her position provided excellent concealment while offering clear lines of sight across the entire operational area. Captain McKenzie was positioned approximately 50 meters to her left, coordinating reconnaissance activities and maintaining communication with their command center. The rest of their 12-man team was spread across a defensive perimeter that provided security for their observation post while gathering intelligence on enemy activities in the region. Santos, what's your assessment of the situation developing below us? McKenzie whispered into his radio headset. Maria adjusted her scope and studied the tactical situation more carefully. Sir, we have 8 friendlies moving into what appears to be a complex ambush. Enemy forces are positioned on 3 sides with what looks like prepared fighting positions and interlocking fields of fire. The friendlies appear to be unaware of the full scope of the threat they're facing. McKenzie moved to a position where he could observe the developing situation through his own optics. What he saw confirmed Maria's assessment. The valley below them was turning into a textbook example of an ambush operation, with the approaching SEAL team walking directly into an expertly prepared trap. Can you identify the unit designation of the friendly forces? McKenzie asked. Maria studied the equipment and movement patterns of the 8-man team. Based on their kit and tactical movement, I'd assess them as Navy SEALs conducting what appears to be a direct action mission. Their equipment configuration suggests they're planning a capture or elimination operation rather than reconnaissance. The tactical situation was becoming increasingly complex. McKenzie's team had no direct communication link with the SEAL team below, no knowledge of their mission parameters, and no authority to intervene in their operation. However, they were about to witness what appeared certain to be a catastrophic engagement unless something changed dramatically in the next few minutes. Through her scope, Maria watched Taliban fighters continue to move into positions throughout the valley. Her count had reached 38 confirmed enemy personnel, with additional movement suggesting that more fighters were still arriving. The enemy force was equipped with a mixture of AK-47 assault rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, and at least 2 crew-served machine guns that she could identify from their elevated positions. The enemy commander appeared to be coordinating the operation from a position on the opposite ridgeline, approximately 800 meters from Maria's location. Through her scope, she could see him directing the placement of his fighters while maintaining radio communication with what appeared to be additional forces outside her field of observation. Sir, Maria reported to McKenzie, enemy strength appears to be approaching 40 personnel with crew-served weapons and coordinated leadership. The friendlies below are outnumbered 5-1 and moving into terrain that will provide significant advantages to the defending force. McKenzie was faced with a decision that would define his military career and potentially determine whether 8 elite American warriors lived or died in the next hour. Military protocol suggested that his unit should continue their reconnaissance mission without interfering in the SEAL operation. However, his moral obligation as an American soldier and his tactical assessment of the situation suggested that intervention might be the only way to prevent a catastrophic loss of American lives. The Taliban ambush was scheduled to begin as soon as the SEAL team moved into the valley floor, where they would be channeled between rocky outcroppings that would limit their movement options while exposing them to fire from elevated positions on three sides. The enemy commander was waiting for the optimal moment to initiate contact, which would maximize casualties among the American forces while minimizing risks to his own fighters. Maria continued her observation of the developing tactical situation while calculating potential engagement scenarios. Her position provided excellent fields of fire across most of the ambush area, and her weapon system was capable of accurate engagement against targets at ranges up to 1,200 meters. If she chose to intervene, she could potentially eliminate key enemy personnel and disrupt the coordinated ambush before it achieved its objectives. However, such intervention would immediately compromise her team's reconnaissance mission and expose their position to enemy counterattack. Once she fired the first shot, her muzzle flash and sound signature would reveal her location to every enemy fighter in the valley. Her team would then become targets themselves, potentially creating a larger engagement that could result in casualties among her own unit. The SEAL team below had stopped their advance and appear to be conducting a tactical assessment of their situation. Maria could see their team leader using optical equipment to study the village ahead, while his team members established security positions around their temporary halt position. Their body language suggested growing awareness that something was wrong with their tactical situation. Through her radio earpiece, Maria could hear increased chatter on Taliban communication frequencies that Ghost was monitoring from his position with the SEAL team. The enemy was coordinating final preparations for their ambush, confirming that all positions were manned and ready for the engagement to begin. Overwatch positions report ready. Came one transmission in Pashto. Machine gun teams confirm fields of fire established, reported another voice. Rocket teams standing by for engagement, confirmed a third transmission. The countdown to catastrophe was accelerating, and Maria realized that the decision point was approaching rapidly. In less than 10 minutes, the SEAL team would either proceed into the killing zone or attempt to withdraw through terrain that was already occupied by enemy forces moving to cut off their escape routes. Captain Mackenzie made the decision that would change everything that followed. Santos, you are authorized to provide precision fire support to prevent imminent loss of American lives. Engage targets of opportunity to disrupt the enemy ambush operations. Maria felt a surge of adrenaline as she realized she was about to engage in the most important shooting of her military career. 8 elite American warriors were depending on her accuracy and tactical judgment to survive the next hour. The enemy commander, the machine gun positions, and the rocket teams would be her primary targets, struck in sequence to create maximum disruption of the coordinated ambush. She began calculating wind speed, temperature, humidity, and elevation differences that would affect her bullet trajectory at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters. Each shot would need to be perfect, because once she revealed her position, the enemy would begin directing fire toward her location while attempting to complete their ambush of the SEAL team below. The morning sun was rising higher, improving visibility, but also creating heat shimmer that could affect long-range accuracy. Maria adjusted her scope settings and controlled her breathing as she prepared for the engagement that would determine whether 8 American heroes lived to see another day. What happened next would demonstrate that sometimes the most important battles are fought by warriors whose names never appear in official reports, whose actions save lives without receiving recognition, and whose courage shines brightest when no one is watching except the enemy in their crosshairs. The Taliban fighters below had no idea that their carefully planned ambush was about to be shattered by a guardian angel they never saw coming. Armed with a rifle and the determination to ensure that American warriors made it home alive. The first shot echoed across the valley at exactly 0627 hours, and Taliban commander Zamir Hassan never heard the sound that ended his life. Maria's bullet struck him center mass from a distance of 1,247 meters, eliminating the operational command and control element that had been coordinating the complex ambush. The enemy fighters positioned throughout the valley suddenly found themselves without centralized leadership at the critical moment when their carefully planned operation was supposed to begin. Morrison felt the supersonic crack of the rifle round pass overhead and immediately recognized the distinctive sound signature of American military ammunition fired from a precision rifle system. Someone was providing overwatch support, and that someone had just eliminated what appeared to be a key enemy leader from an elevated position approximately 1 kilometer distant. Sniper support, unknown friendly. Morrison called out to his team through their communication system. Take defensive positions and prepare for contact. The SEAL team immediately spread into a defensive formation that maximized their firepower while providing mutual support and overlapping fields of fire. Tank positioned his machine gun to cover their primary avenue of approach, while Hawk began scanning for targets through his own sniper scope. Ghost increased his monitoring of enemy communication frequencies, listening for tactical changes in response to the loss of their commander. Maria had already shifted her aim to the first machine gun position, located approximately 980 meters from her location on a rocky outcropping that commanded excellent fields of fire across the valley floor. The two-man crew was attempting to relocate their weapon system in response to the unexpected sniper fire when her second shot eliminated the gunner with surgical precision. The machine gunner's partner grabbed the weapon and attempted to continue the engagement, but Maria's third shot, fired 4 seconds after her second, eliminated him as well. The first crew-served weapon that could have devastated the SEAL team was now silent, and its position was no longer a threat. Taliban fighters throughout the valley were beginning to return fire, but their shots were poorly aimed and largely ineffective because they couldn't identify the source of the precision fire that was systematically dismantling their ambush. Some fighters were shooting at the SEAL team's position, while others were firing randomly at the ridgelines where they thought the sniper might be located. Morrison realized that the unknown sniper was providing exactly the type of support his team needed to break contact and move to a more defensible position. Rather than remaining in the valley floor, where they would be vulnerable to the remaining enemy forces, he decided to move his team toward higher ground that would provide better defensive options. Team, we're moving to Bravo position on my command, Morrison transmitted. Unknown sniper is providing cover fire, but we need to improve our tactical situation while the enemy is disorganized. Bravo position was a rocky ridge approximately 400 meters from their current location that would provide elevated fields of fire and multiple egress routes if they needed to break contact completely. The movement would be dangerous because it required crossing open ground, but the continuing sniper fire was keeping enemy heads down and disrupting their ability to coordinate effective fire. Maria had identified the second machine gun position and was calculating her engagement parameters when she noticed Taliban fighters beginning to move toward what appeared to be predetermined fallback positions. The enemy force was attempting to adapt to the unexpected sniper fire by repositioning to locations that would provide better concealment while maintaining their ability to engage the SEAL team. Her fourth shot eliminated the leader of the rocket-propelled grenade team that was attempting to establish a position where they could engage the SEALs during their movement to higher ground. The RPG team leader had been directing the placement of his weapon system when Maria's bullet struck him from a range of 1,156 meters, causing the rest of his team to abandon their position and seek cover. Captain McKenzie was monitoring the engagement through his own optical equipment while coordinating security for Maria and the rest of their Special Forces team. The engagement was developing beyond their original parameters, and he was calculating their options for supporting the SEAL team while maintaining the security of his own unit. Santos, enemy forces are beginning to converge on what they think might be your firing position, McKenzie warned through their radio link. You may need to displace soon to avoid counterattack. Maria was aware of the tactical situation, but continued engaging targets that posed the greatest threat to the SEAL team below. Her fifth shot eliminated another Taliban fighter who was attempting to coordinate the movement of personnel toward blocking positions that would cut off the SEALs' route to higher ground. The SEAL team began their movement toward Bravo position with Tank providing covering fire while the rest of the team moved in pairs across the open ground. Ghost maintained communication watch while Doc monitored the team's condition and equipment status. Blade was identifying potential explosive threats along their route, while Rookie provided security for their movement. Silent was moving with characteristic stealth toward an overwatch position where he could provide early warning of enemy movement, while Hawk continued engaging targets of opportunity with his sniper rifle. The eight-man team was functioning with the precision and coordination that exemplified their extensive training and combat experience. Maria's sixth shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was attempting to establish a position where he could engage the moving SEALs with effective rifle fire. Her seventh shot disabled another fighter who was trying to coordinate the placement of an improvised explosive device along the SEALs' movement route. The enemy force was beginning to realize that they were facing a marksman of exceptional skill and accuracy. Taliban fighters were abandoning exposed positions and seeking cover behind rocks and terrain features that would protect them from long-range precision fire. However, this movement was also reducing their ability to effectively engage the SEAL team, which was exactly what Maria intended to achieve. Morrison's team reached the base of the rocky ridge and began establishing defensive positions that would provide better protection while offering improved fields of fire against the remaining enemy forces. Their movement had been successful, and they were now in a much stronger tactical position than they had occupied in the valley floor. Team is in position at Bravo. Morrison reported through his radio system. Unknown sniper support has been extremely effective. Request identification if possible. Maria heard the transmission through her team's communication intercept equipment and realized that the SEAL team was attempting to establish contact. However, revealing her identity and position would compromise operational security for both units and might provide intelligence that enemy forces could exploit. Captain McKenzie made the decision to maintain communication security while continuing to provide fire support. Santos, continue engaging targets of opportunity. Do not acknowledge or respond to identification requests from the supported unit. Maria's eighth shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was attempting to establish observation and fire direction for the remaining enemy forces. Her ninth shot disabled another fighter who was trying to coordinate an assault on the SEAL team's new position. The engagement had now continued for approximately 12 minutes, and Maria had eliminated 9 enemy personnel while disrupting the coordination and command structure of the entire Taliban force. The carefully planned ambush had been transformed into a confused firefight with the enemy force scattered and largely ineffective. However, the Taliban fighters were beginning to adapt to the situation by attempting to locate and engage the unknown sniper who was causing such devastating casualties among their ranks. Maria could see muzzle flashes from several positions as enemy fighters attempted to suppress what they thought might be her location. Hawk, from his position with the SEAL team, had been observing the engagement and calculating the probable location of the friendly sniper based on bullet trajectories and timing between shots. His assessment suggested that their guardian angel was positioned on the ridgeline approximately 1,200 to 1,500 meters from the original ambush site. Reaper, I think our sniper support is coming from the northwest ridgeline, Hawk reported. Whoever it is, they're shooting like Annie Oakley with a modern rifle. I've never seen precision fire like this at these ranges. Tank had been engaging enemy positions with his machine gun while observing the effects of the unknown sniper's fire. Sir, our sniper support just eliminated what looked like their last RPG team. The enemy force is starting to break contact and withdraw to secondary positions. The Taliban fighters were indeed beginning to withdraw from their forward positions as the casualties mounted and their command structure collapsed. However, approximately 20 enemy personnel remained in the immediate area, and they were beginning to coordinate a more organized response to the unexpected intervention. Maria identified what appeared to be a secondary enemy commander attempting to rally the remaining Taliban fighters for a coordinated assault on the SEAL team's position. Her 10th shot eliminated him at a range of 1,089 meters, further disrupting enemy coordination and morale. The engagement was reaching a critical phase where the remaining enemy forces would either withdraw completely or attempt a desperate assault that could still result in American casualties. Maria realized that her continued precision fire was the decisive factor that would determine the outcome of the battle and the survival of 8 elite American warriors who were depending on her accuracy and judgment. What happened in the next few minutes would demonstrate the devastating effectiveness of a single skilled marksman operating from concealed positions against an enemy force that had lost its coordination and command structure. The Taliban fighters below had no effective response to precision fire from an unknown location, and their carefully planned ambush was disintegrating under the relentless accuracy of Maria's rifle. The battle reached its turning point when the remaining Taliban fighters made their fatal mistake. Frustrated by their inability to locate the mysterious sniper who was systematically destroying their force, they decided to launch a desperate frontal assault against the SEAL team's position. What they didn't realize was that this decision would expose them to devastating crossfire from both Maria's elevated position and the SEAL's defensive formation. 26 Taliban fighters emerged from concealed positions throughout the valley and began advancing toward the rocky ridge where Morrison's team had established their defensive perimeter. They moved in small groups, attempting to use available cover while concentrating their fire on what they believed was a manageable 8-man American unit. Morrison watched the enemy advance through his tactical scope and realized that the Taliban fighters had made a critical tactical error. By exposing themselves for a coordinated assault, they had eliminated the concealment and defensive advantages that had made them dangerous during the ambush phase of the engagement. All positions, prepare for coordinated engagement, Morrison commanded through the team radio system. Enemy force is advancing in the open. We have overlapping fields of fire and sniper support. This is our opportunity to end this fight decisively. Tank positioned his M249 SAW machine gun to cover the primary avenue of approach and began engaging the advancing Taliban fighters with controlled bursts of automatic fire. His training and experience allowed him to deliver devastating effective fire while conserving ammunition for the sustained engagement that was developing. Hawk had identified priority targets among the advancing enemy force and began engaging Taliban fighters who appeared to be providing leadership or carrying crew-serve weapons. His precision rifle fire complemented Tank's suppressive fire by eliminating key personnel who were attempting to coordinate the enemy assault. Ghost continued monitoring enemy communication frequencies while engaging targets with his assault rifle. The radio chatter he was intercepting indicated increasing panic and confusion among the Taliban fighters as their casualties mounted and their assault began to falter. Doc was providing medical support to the team while engaging targets of opportunity with his rifle. All 8 SEAL team members remained in excellent condition with no injuries or equipment failures, giving them significant advantages in terms of sustained combat effectiveness. Blade was engaging enemy personnel while monitoring for explosive threats that might be employed during the assault. His demolitions expertise allowed him to identify and neutralize Taliban fighters who might be carrying improvised explosive devices or rocket-propelled grenades. Rookie was demonstrating that his call sign no longer accurately reflected his combat capabilities. His rifle fire was accurate and effective, and his tactical awareness was contributing significantly to the team's defensive coordination. Silent was living up to his reputation by moving between defensive positions with ghost-like efficiency, engaging targets from unexpected angles, while providing early warning of enemy movement that might threaten the team's flanks or rear areas. From her elevated position, Maria had an excellent view of the developing assault and began engaging targets with systematic precision that complemented the SEAL's defensive fire. Her 11th shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was attempting to establish a position where he could provide covering fire for the advancing assault teams. The crossfire between Maria's precision shots and the SEAL's coordinated defensive fire was devastating to the exposed Taliban fighters. Enemy personnel who attempted to advance were caught between accurate rifle fire from the ridge and precision sniper fire from an unknown location that seemed to anticipate their every movement. Maria's 12th shot eliminated the Taliban fighter who appeared to be leading the assault, causing immediate confusion among the advancing groups as they lost their tactical coordination. Her 13th shot disabled another fighter who was attempting to rally his colleagues for a continued advance. Captain McKenzie was monitoring the engagement while maintaining security for his own team's position. The battle below was demonstrating the effectiveness of combined arms coordination between different American units, even when those units had no direct communication or prior coordination. Santos, the enemy assault is faltering, Mackenzie reported through their radio link. Continue engaging targets of opportunity, but be prepared to displace if enemy forces attempt to locate and engage your position. Maria was aware of the tactical situation, but continued focusing on targets that posed the greatest threat to the SEAL team's defensive position. Her 14th shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was carrying what appeared to be an RPG launcher, preventing him from engaging the SEAL's position with explosive ordnance. The Taliban assault was beginning to collapse as casualties mounted and tactical coordination disappeared. Fighters who had begun the advance with confidence and determination were now seeking cover and attempting to withdraw from the killing field that the valley had become. Morrison realized that this was the critical moment when aggressive action could transform their defensive success into a complete victory. Rather than allowing the remaining enemy forces to withdraw and potentially reorganize for another attack, he decided to transition from defense to offense. Team, prepare for tactical advance, Morrison commanded. We're going to press the attack while the enemy is disorganized and demoralized. Tank, provide covering fire. Hawk, engage targets of opportunity. All other positions, advance by pairs. The SEAL team began moving forward from their defensive positions in a coordinated advance that maintained their tactical formation while pressing the attack against the retreating Taliban fighters. Their movement was deliberate and professional, designed to maintain mutual support while eliminating remaining threats. Maria adjusted her engagement priorities to support the SEAL team's advance by focusing on enemy personnel who might be able to establish defensive positions or coordinate resistance to the American attack. Her 15th shot eliminated a Taliban fighter who was attempting to establish a position where he could engage the advancing SEALs. Tank's machine gun fire was devastating against Taliban fighters who were attempting to maintain defensive positions in the open terrain. The combination of his suppressive fire and the team's coordinated advance was overwhelming the remaining enemy resistance. Hawk was engaging specific targets that posed threats to the advancing team members, while Ghost continued monitoring enemy communications for signs of reinforcement or reorganization. Doc maintained his medical readiness while participating in the advance, and Blade was identifying and neutralizing potential explosive threats along their route. The remaining Taliban fighters realized that their tactical situation had become hopeless. Caught between precision sniper fire from an unknown location and an aggressive advance by elite American forces, they began abandoning their positions and attempting to escape from the engagement area. Maria's 16th shot eliminated one of the last Taliban fighters who was attempting to provide covering fire for his retreating colleagues. Her 17th shot disabled another fighter who was trying to delay the American advance with rifle fire from a defensive position. The engagement was rapidly approaching its conclusion as the Taliban force disintegrated under the combined pressure of coordinated American fire and tactical movement. What had begun as a carefully planned ambush designed to eliminate 8 American warriors had been transformed into a devastating defeat for the enemy force. Morrison's team continued their advance while maintaining tactical discipline and mutual support. They were systematically clearing the engagement area while ensuring that no enemy personnel remained in positions where they could threaten American forces or escape to report intelligence about the engagement. Ghost reported that enemy radio traffic was indicating complete breakdown of tactical coordination and widespread retreat from the engagement area. The Taliban fighters who remained alive were focused entirely on escape rather than continued resistance. Maria fired her 18th shot at a Taliban fighter who was attempting to recover weapons or equipment from the battlefield, eliminating him before he could successfully complete his mission. Her 19th shot disabled another fighter who was providing rearguard action for the retreating enemy force. The battle was essentially over, but the SEALs continued their methodical advance to ensure complete tactical success. Their professional approach to combat operations was demonstrating why they were considered among the world's most elite military forces. What remained now was the aftermath of engagement that had demonstrated the decisive importance of accurate fires, tactical coordination, and the courage of individual warriors who rise to meet extraordinary challenges. The mysterious sniper who had turned the tide would soon face a choice about whether to reveal her identity to the warriors whose lives she had saved. The silence that followed the gunfire was almost overwhelming after the intensity of the engagement. Morrison stood among the scattered remains of the Taliban force that had numbered 40 fighters less than an hour earlier, trying to process what had just happened. 31 enemy combatants lay dead across the valley floor, while the remaining 9 had managed to escape during the final phase of the engagement. Not a single member of his SEAL team had sustained so much as a minor injury. The tactical impossibility of their survival was not lost on any of the 8 warriors. They had walked into a perfectly executed ambush by a numerically superior enemy force in terrain that offered every advantage to the defenders. By all conventional military analysis, they should not have survived the first 5 minutes of contact. Instead, they were standing victorious in engagement that would be studied in military academies for decades to come. Ghost, any radio traffic indicating enemy reinforcements or follow-up operations? Morrison asked while scanning the surrounding ridgelines for signs of continued threats. Ghost checked his communication equipment and shook his head. Negative, sir. All enemy traffic indicates complete withdrawal from this operational area. Whoever survived is running hard and fast with no intention of regrouping. Tank was conducting a systematic inspection of the battlefield, documenting enemy equipment and assessing the effectiveness of their defensive engagement. Sir, based on the weapon systems and ammunition we're finding, this was definitely a prepared ambush designed specifically for our type of operation. Someone leaked our mission parameters. Hawk had been studying bullet trajectories and impact patterns throughout the engagement area, trying to determine the exact location of their mysterious sniper support. His analysis was revealing marksmanship of almost supernatural accuracy and consistency. Reaper, our guardian angel, was shooting from approximately 1,400 meters average range, Hawk reported. I count 19 confirmed impacts with what appears to be 100% accuracy. I've never seen shooting like this, not even from our own sniper instructors. Doc was treating minor cuts and bruises sustained during the engagement while maintaining medical readiness for potential follow-up operations. All team members are in excellent condition. No injuries requiring medical evacuation or impacting operational capability. Blade had discovered evidence that confirmed their suspicions about the sophistication of the ambush they had survived. Sir, this position shows signs of preparation that took weeks to complete. Ammunition pre-positioned, range cards prepared, interlocking fields of fire established. This wasn't opportunistic. Someone knew we were coming. Rookie was conducting reconnaissance of escape routes and potential helicopter landing zones for their eventual extraction. Multiple egress routes available, sir. Terrain is suitable for helicopter extraction at several locations within 2 kilometers of our current position. Silent had been moving through the battlefield with characteristic efficiency, gathering intelligence, and ensuring that no enemy personnel remained alive to pose threats or provide information about American tactical procedures. Morrison made the decision that would lead to one of the most remarkable encounters in modern military history. Rather than immediately requesting extraction, he decided to attempt contact with the unknown sniper who had saved their lives. Unknown sniper, this is Reaper 7. Morrison broadcast on an open tactical frequency. Request brief contact for proper acknowledgement of your assistance. We owe you our lives. The transmission echoed across the valley and was received by Maria's communication equipment 1,500 meters away. She looked at Captain Mackenzie, awaiting his decision about whether to respond to the SEAL team's request for contact. Mackenzie understood the significance of the moment. The engagement they had just witnessed demonstrated tactical cooperation between American units that exceeded anything described in military doctrine. The SEAL team's survival was directly attributable to Maria's intervention, and their request for acknowledgement was both appropriate and deserved. Santos, you are authorized to establish brief radio contact for acknowledgement purposes only, Mackenzie decided. Do not reveal unit designation, mission parameters, or operational details. Maria keyed her radio transmitter for the first time since the engagement began. Reaper 7, this is Guardian Angel. Acknowledge your transmission. Are your people secure? Morrison felt a surge of surprise at hearing a distinctly female voice responding to his call for contact with their sniper support. The voice was calm, professional, and carried the unmistakable confidence of someone who had just demonstrated extraordinary military competence. Guardian Angel, all personnel secure with no casualties, Morrison responded. Request permission to approach your position for proper acknowledgement of your assistance. Maria looked at Mackenzie again, knowing that revealing their position would compromise their own mission security while potentially exposing her team to unnecessary risks. However, the extraordinary nature of what had just occurred seemed to warrant extraordinary measures. Negative on approach to my position, Maria replied. However, Guardian Angel will approach your position for brief contact, if tactically appropriate. Mackenzie nodded his approval. The engagement was concluded. Enemy forces had withdrawn from the operational area, and a brief meeting between the two American units would not compromise either mission significantly. Maria secured her rifle and began the careful descent from her elevated position toward the valley floor where the SEAL team was waiting. The movement took approximately 20 minutes as she navigated the rocky terrain while maintaining security awareness for potential threats. Morrison had positioned his team in a defensive formation that would provide security for the meeting while maintaining readiness for immediate action if the tactical situation changed. When he first saw the figure approaching their position, he was struck by the professional bearing and confident movement that characterized elite military personnel. As Maria drew closer, it became apparent that their guardian angel was indeed a woman, probably in her late 20s, carrying a precision rifle system and moving with the confidence of someone completely comfortable in combat environments. She approached to within 20 meters of the SEAL team's position before Morrison stepped forward to meet her. "Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, SEAL Team 7, he said, extending his hand in greeting. I'm not sure how to properly thank someone for saving 8 lives with the most impressive display of marksmanship any of us have ever witnessed." Maria accepted the handshake with a slight smile. "Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, Army Special Forces. Just doing my job, sir. Glad we were in position to help when you needed it." Huck approached with undisguised amazement at meeting the marksman whose shooting had saved their lives. "Ma'am, I'm a sniper myself, and what you just accomplished was beyond anything I thought was possible. 19 hits at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters with 100% accuracy under combat conditions. You just rewrote the book on precision marksmanship." Tank stepped forward with characteristic directness. "Ma'am, you saved our lives today. Every single one of us should be dead right now. And instead we're standing here because you had the skill and courage to intervene when we needed it most." Ghost was shaking his head in amazement. "I've been in special operations for 12 years, and I've never seen anything like what you just did. The tactical timing, the target selection, the accuracy. It was like watching an artist at work." Doc approached with medical professional interest. "Ma'am, the precision required for that type of shooting under combat stress should be physiologically impossible. Your heart rate control and breathing discipline must be extraordinary." Blade was studying Maria's equipment with professional appreciation. "Your rifle system and ammunition selection were perfect for the engagement parameters. Someone trained you very well." Rookie spoke with the enthusiasm of someone witnessing military excellence. "Ma'am, I'm going to remember this engagement for the rest of my career. You've shown me what's possible when training meets courage under the worst possible circumstances." Silent, true to his nature, simply nodded his respect while maintaining security awareness for the group. Morrison realized that they were in the presence of a warrior whose actions would be remembered long after the official reports were filed and forgotten. "Staff Sergeant Santos, your intervention today represents everything that's best about American military forces. Professional excellence, tactical courage, and the determination to ensure that fellow warriors come home alive." Maria was somewhat uncomfortable with the level of praise she was receiving. "Sir, any American soldier would have done the same thing. We don't leave our people behind, and we don't let them fight alone when we can help." The brief meeting concluded with mutual respect and professional acknowledgement between warriors who had shared an extraordinary combat experience. Maria returned to her team's position while the SEALs prepared for extraction, but the memory of their guardian angel would remain with them for the rest of their careers. Later investigation would reveal that the Taliban ambush had been planned for weeks based on intelligence leaked through Afghan government sources. The enemy force had been specifically positioned to eliminate SEAL Team 7, making Maria's intervention not just tactically decisive, but strategically critical to ongoing American operations in the region. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos never received public recognition for her actions that morning. Military operational security prevented detailed reporting of the engagement, and her role remained classified for years afterward. However, among the warriors who serve in Afghanistan, the story of the Guardian Angel sniper who saved 8 SEALs became legend. The engagement demonstrated that heroism often comes from unexpected sources, that excellence recognizes no gender boundaries, and that sometimes the most important victories are won by warriors whose names never appear in newspapers, but whose actions ensure that American heroes come home alive to the families who love them. 8 elite warriors lived to fight another day, because one exceptional soldier with a rifle chose courage over caution when American lives hung in the balance. In the annals of military history, there are no greater victories than those measured in lives saved rather than enemies killed, and no higher honor than the respect of fellow warriors who know the true cost of freedom.